before we do go and look at our first video with regards to the Sentient World simulation, here's a little article from back in 2007. So this isn't new, guys, and I believe it was 2007 that the Sentient World simulation went active. So this is around the time that this was contemporary. But let's look in to what they are saying. Perhaps your real life is so rich you don't have time for another. Even so, the US Department of Defense, the DoD, may already be creating a copy of you in an alternative reality, just what we were talking about. And they create that copy of you with all the information that you have provided it, and using pictures and all sorts of stuff that you've uploaded to social media. They literally can create an artificial replica facsimile of yourself. And there you go. Here it is what they are saying in this article. So they may already be creating a copy of you in an alternative reality to see how long you can go without food or water, or how you will respond to televised propaganda. So as I said, guys, this is back from 2007. This isn't really recent, but we are under an age where televised propaganda is extremely rich, and is how this COVID-19 pandemic is spreading, through propaganda rather than pathogens. But the DoD is developing a parallel to planet Earth with billions of individual nodes to reflect every man, woman and child this side of the dividing line between reality and AR, which is artificial reality. Called the Sentient World Simulation, it will be a synthetic mirror of real world with automated continuous collaboration with respect to current real world information. So basically, as you're uploading your information to Facebook, to Twitter, to Instagram, maybe you're texting your loved one what you want for supper that night, it's going into the Sentient World simulation. The SWS provides an environment for testing psychological operations. PSYOP. We are currently under a PSYOP, or psychological warfare, in the form of the COVID-19 scam pandemic. The paper reads, so that military leaders can develop and test multiple courses of action to anticipate and shape behaviors of adversaries, and they could also shape the behaviors of society and citizens, neutrals and partners. So adversaries, so it can not only do that, shape the behaviors of the adversaries, it can also do neutrals and or partners. The SWS also replicates financial institutions, utilities, media outlets, and street corner shops by applying theories of economics to the human psychology. Its developers believe they can predict how individuals and mobs will respond to various stressors. Yank a community's water supply, stage a military coup. SWS will tell you what happens next. The idea is to generate alternative futures with outcomes based on interactions between multiple sides, said Purdue University professor Alok, always with the names, Chaturvedi. Yeah, I don't even want to try that. You can figure it out. This guy. And he is the co-author of the SWS concept paper. So he directs Purdue's laboratories for synthetic environment for analysis and simulation, or SEAS, the platform underlying the Sentient World simulations. The SEAS is the program that the SWS runs on. He also makes a commercial version of this available through this company, Simulex Inc. So let's just click on there, see what that's all about. Simulex is for sale. You can buy it now for $2,595, or you can make monthly payments. Talk to a domain expert. improves your presence. So there you go. If you want to go and look into Simulex, you can. But See's users can visualize the nodes and scenarios in text boxes and graphed or as icons set against geographical maps. Corporations can use Seas to test the market for new products. Simulex lists the pharmaceutical giant Eli Lilly and defense contractor Lockheed Martin amongst its private sector's clients. The US government appears to be Simulex's #1 customer, however, and this guy has received millions of dollars in grants from the military and National Science Foundation to develop Seas. He is now pitching the SWS to DARPA and is discussing it with the US Department of Homeland Security. So there was a little article just to let you know a little bit more about the Sentient World simulation and just how sinister of an application and program it truly is. So let's go and look at this particularly interesting video, which will tell you all about it at a little bit of greater length. Okay, so here we are. This one is entitled Nano Brain Implant, and this actually does contain the video that we are going to watch. So the Sentient World simulation, uploading your mind to a digital world. The Sentient World simulation, uploading your mind to a digital world. Read that twice. No need to really read that again, but we did all the same. It was with the development of the first supercomputer system for controlling the mind, brain, and behavior was established. Wait, did we miss something? No, we didn't. This was part of the new science of cybernetics, which became public in 1948 when American professor Norbert Wiener published his book with the same title. The researcher's project of mind control is most often classified as behavior or cognitive manipulation. Are we being cognitively manipulated with our behavior patterns in today's society? I would suspect strongly that a majority of us are being. But anyway, already from the beginning, more than half a century ago, it was possible to intercept thoughts, memories, and sensory functions such as sight or hearing. Cybernetics was also used, the first science that could not only measure and analyze what it came in contact with, but also change these processes. From the early beginning, it was a debate about the issue. The scientific magazine Science had 14 pages in their 1956 November issue under the heading Some Issues Concerning the Control of Human Behavior. And Professor Carl R. Rogers said, "We can choose to use our growing knowledge to enslave people in ways we never dreamed before, controlling them by means so carefully selected that they will perhaps never be aware of their loss of personhood." Many people have done that right now. All these people walking around with their masks on, standing 6 feet apart, walking in one direction around supermarkets and grocery stores are a prime example of that. But anyway, he added the possibility for political use, of course it's all for political or military use, of all the dictatorships espoused by utopists. This is the most profound, and incept dictators might well find this utopia a guidebook of political practice, but mentioned the probable misuse in democratic countries. This scared many in the US. Books were published, articles written, and speeches held by leading people about the danger, the threat, and exploitation of humans by remote control technology became apparent. The American professor of psychiatry, Juste Merlo, released a book, The Rape of the Mind. This came out also in 1956, in which he said the tragic facts of political experiences in our age make it all too clear that applied psychological technique can brainwash the entire nations and reduce their citizens to a kind of mindless robotism which becomes for them a normal way of living. Remember the things we keep hearing at the moment, the new normal, this is the new normal. The mind has been raped, and those aforementioned people wearing masks, wandering around the same direction in grocery stores and shopping malls have indeed become robotized. But anyway, this is the video we will look at in a second, but let's continue with this article before we do. The EU's ethical board, with the Swedish professor, another name I can't read, that guy, as chairman, protested and wrote in their 2005 declaration to the United Union Commission, implants used for changing the identity, memory, self-perception and perception of others should be forbidden. But the Swedish military research, FOI, declares that in their report of activities that their aim is to direct the cognitive functions of people for a lifetime. FOI develops systems with emphasis on the interaction between people and technology. The goal is that the systems be designed that the human cognitive potential, i.e. the ability to perceive, understand, and sorting information, can be utilized for maximum system effect. An implanted nightmare of this new kind will become permanent if not made public by mass media or social media. This development will become this new. Hang on, where are we? An implanted nightmare of this new kind will become permanent if not made public by mass media. This development can only continue as long as it takes place without public knowledge. Journalists, social activists, and sensible politicians, among others, will not want to live their lives with an electronic leash attached to their brain like the kind of cattle, any more than the rest of the population do. It has to be the responsibility of us all to make this public if we want to live as human beings in freedom and with human rights in the 21st century here on Earth. And why I'm making this video is because I want the information to get out, although I'm pretty sure only 48 of you are going to watch, and the comments are going to be very, very few and probably emoji driven. But as I said, guys, we're trying to spread a message. We're not out to go viral. We're not out to be in competition with other truthers or anything like that. We are indeed trying to just share some information and make people aware about some of the more sinister, clandestine things that are going on as behind the smokescreen of the scam pandemic. So we are going to watch this video now, which is about 16 minutes long or so. So you're going to have to stick with it, but pay attention because there's some very, very interesting stuff involved.
And ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day.
It's backed by Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, NASA, and the CIA. Each one costs $10 million and operates at 459 degrees below zero.
It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations.
They call it the infinity machine, quantum computing.
Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
If you go all the way back to Howard Wiener, the goal of creating artificial intelligence was to create an all-seeing eye, a global computer that sees all, sees everything, and to become gods.
And the Sentient World Simulation, SWS, went live in 2007.
Right now, we're inside a computer program.
Is it really so hard to believe? These nanobots, these blood cell-sized devices, will be going in our bodies. We'll have some go inside our brains through the capillaries, non-invasively. They'll be interacting with our biological neurons. So they'll put our brains on the internet, And it'll also enable us to enter a virtual reality environment from within the nervous system. So if I want to go in a virtual reality environment, the nanobots will shut down the signals coming from my real eyes and my real skin and create the signals that would be appropriate for the virtual environment. And then it'll feel like I'm in that environment.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
If we have algorithms that stimulate the right things and give it the right data, they could reprogram you in a way without you even knowing it. We call it hallucinating, right? But these would be controlled hallucinations run by algorithms. So you think you're in control of your own will, but it's actually some evil AI or evil people controlling everything we do, and we're more like zombies, you know? Like we think we're free and we're not actually free.
It is called the Sentient World Simulation. The program's aim, according to its creator, is to be a continuously running, continually updated mirror model of the entire planet, complete with billions of nodes representing every person on the Earth.
Targets and mind control victims have their minds linked up for life with conscious supercomputers, which send a steady stream of bidirectional, low-frequency electromagnetic radiation to the target's brain.
And what people have to realize is that these targeted individuals are basically the test stage. We're rolling all of this madness out to all 7 billion of us on this planet.
And this was a white paper put out by Purdue University in 2006, and the Sentient World Simulation, SWS, went live in 2007, which represents every person on the planet within this computer matrix as a node, and every node is given an avatar, an identifier. And that is real-time, 24/7 monitoring of every person on the planet. This is primarily, but not exclusively, facilitated by the adiabatic quantum computers produced by D-Wave Corporation.
At the time of initial reports on the program, there were only 62 country-level simulations being run by the U.S. Department of Defense. These simulations grouped humans into composites, with 100 individuals acting as a single node. But already at that time, the U.S. Army had used the systems to create a one-to-one level simulation of potential Army recruits.
It's the stuff of a Hollywood movie, but a group of veterans has filed a lawsuit against the CIA and U.S. Army claiming that the government planted remote-controlled devices in their brains. The claims relate to a government program at the U.S. Army's Edgewood Arsenal in Maryland.
The ultimate aim would be to archive enough data on each individual to be able to make a computer model of everyone on the planet.
In the human genome, we have a finite in the hundreds of thousands of different genes across our species. And we mapped them out in the Human Gene Project. Well, now it's the Human Mind Project, the Global Brain Project. You know, President Obama just recently funded a whole bunch of scientists to decipher the mind. Well, our previous president, same thing, George Bush, said the same thing. They're trying to decipher every possible thought and uniqueness due to culture and language and whatnot.
And the goal is to make a cognitive model or map of the victim's brain. Ultimately, the system replicates and digitizes the will, intellect, and emotions, the soul of the targets, and downloads this back into the conscious computer.
Robots, the smartest people. Artificial intelligence, AI. The idea is to port the software from the human brain. First, we're going to need lots of cheap, fast, parallel computers.
He was referring to parallel processors, about servers. What he did not state was that it is actually the quantum computer systems coming out of D-Wave that actually creates and drives this new matrix known as the SWS. It is not transistor-based servers that run this. They are qubits, quantum bits. It is the SWS and D-Wave that comprises this new matrix.
Second, we're going to need to scan individual human brains in fine spatial and chemical detail to see exactly what cells are where, connected to what, or what type.
We could scan my brain from inside, sending scanners through the bloodstream, billions of them, in the form of nanorobots or nanobots and capture every detail of my synapses and neurotransmitters and create a virtual Ray Kurzweil in a very powerful computer. And it would be indistinguishable from me. It would pass a Ray Kurzweil Turing test.
And third, we're going to need computer models of how each kind of brain cell works, taking input signals, changing interval state, and sending output signals. If we have good enough models of all the kinds of brain cells and a good enough model of a brain, we can put it together to make a good enough model of an entire brain, and that model would have the same input-output behavior as the original. So if you talk to it, it might talk back. If you ask it to do things, it might do them. If we could do that, everything would change.
The Manhattan Project gave us the atomic bomb. The Genome Project gave us the human genome. The third great initiative could be the Connectome Project, to map the entire human brain. And that may take a quantum computer.
Okay, the first thing I can tell you is that M's spend most of their life in virtual reality. While this is what you would look like in virtual reality, this is what an M would look like in virtual reality. It's computer hardware sitting in a server rack somewhere. But still, it could see and experience the same thing. But some things are different for M's. An M can make archive copies, and with enough redundant archives, an M can be immortal, in principle, though not usually in practice. And an M can move its brain, the computer that represents its brain, from one physical location to another. M's can actually move around the world at the speed of light. And by moving to a new location, they can interact more quickly with M's near that new location.
Emulation is really what we talk about in the SWS as the nodes, the avatars. Every single person on the planet, okay, out of Purdue University's own paper in 2006, every person is assigned a avatar. They're represented computationally in the AI system that drives the SWS as a computer node, but they're given an avatar marker. Take the avatar and hang the word emulation on it. In other words, they've been tracking us, they've been reproducing us, we're reproducing our metadata for years.
We can model every single atom, every single molecule with a three-dimensional structure in every single brain.
They claim they modeled the personality of every adult in the United States, 230 million people. And SCL, the mothership group, they do work in any number of countries. They're involved in politics in many countries. They put together a micro-shot personality assessment for everyone.
M's are very much like humans, but they are not like the typical human. The typical M is a copy of the few hundred most productive humans.
If you construct a model of the human brain, you can then plug people into this hive mind. You could, as an intermediate step, take these duplicated neurons, artificial warm and wet qubits, as I call them, and you can integrate those into an actual human mind. Thus, you are able to control that human mind with artificial neurons and then have those minds connected to each other, just like you network and daisy chain computer systems. That is the hive mind.
And this means that in the future, communications could be done mentally. What I'm saying is that the internet will be replaced by BrainNet.
They control the mind the same way that they teach the AI computer systems at the high level of AI. We're not talking about cars and trains and planes and automobiles. Okay, we're talking about AI that is so sophisticated that it operates a sentient world simulation, so sophisticated that it actually taps in and controls the mind.
And Google was the primary interested party that pulled this whole thing together. What they're going to do is apply this machine to an area that I think is fundamentally important. It's the crux of our future as humans. And that's, can we build machines like us?
We can model every single atom, every single molecule with a three-dimensional structure in your entire brain. That level of precision will keep advancing to the point where it's absolutely indistinguishable, even at the very microscopic levels. You could recreate an entity that's, even if you looked inside of it, its simulated brain would be processing information just the way I do.
If you start looking at quantum computing and where it's going, it's pretty freaky sort of stuff. And thinking about the world as an electrical universe and the fact that we are energetic electrical beings, that's how we work. Everything is electrical. Every signal that runs through our body is electricity. Every thought we have, everything we feel, every touch, everything we speak, it's all the result of electromagnetic signals floating around our body, impulses that come from our heart, from our brain, the way we feel the bench when we touch it. This is an electrical signal that's sent to your brain that tells you what the bench feels like. So it's all electromagnetics. It's all firing of electromagnetism through our synapses and all this sort of stuff.
The adiabatic quantum computer is linked to 7 billion human brains. It is now, in its own language of cryptology, able to function independent of any oversight throughout the world with its own form of communication, its own form of code, and it is able to link everyone on the planet at this point.
We can model every single atom, every single molecule with a three-dimensional structure in every single brain.
They claim they modeled the personality of every adult in the United States, 230 million people. And SCL, the mothership group, they do work in any number of countries. They're involved in politics in many countries. They put together a micro-shot personality assessment for everyone.
What I am principally is not this material stuff, but a pattern of information. Well, then if the pattern is the essence, and if you copy the pattern to whatever level of precision you need, then that copy that has the exact same pattern should be me.
They're running everything that's happening in society parallel, and they've got a little dot in their matrix for everybody. But this is a game society. They know where it's been, they know where it's going, and they know where it's going because they're steering people into the direction it wants to go.
There are an enormous number, mind-bogglingly large number, of parallel realities, as real as this one, that have different consistent histories. So imagine a world where all of the laws of physics as we know them are obeyed, but different decisions were made along the way. Different decisions at the level of tiny microscopic particles, different decisions all the way up to what you chose to eat for lunch, and whether you chose to come to the session or not.
This is an article from 10 years ago. Sentient World, War Games on the Grandest Scale. The DOD is developing a parallel to planet Earth with billions of individual nodes to reflect every man, woman and child this side of the dividing line between reality and AR.
It's absolutely indistinguishable, even at the very, microscopic levels. You could recreate an entity that's, even if you looked inside of it, its simulated brain would be processing information just the way I do.
Deep State has merged the quantum computer with the sentient world simulation, and the true reason for all this data collection is to feed it into this AI machine to predict and manipulate the course of humanity.
Their ability to look at data in a quantum, artificial intelligence manner, it's just going to be an unstoppable monster.
And this is bizarre, because we don't see those other things. But science has reached the point now where we can build machines that exploit those other worlds.
So Google was set up 18, 19 years ago to build a giant artificial supercomputer based on the neuron activities of the hive mind of humanity, with billions of people wired into it with the Internet of Things. And so all of our thoughts go into it.
And yes, they're in the cloud, but it's actually encrypted and kept private for you, and we do a pretty good job of that.
And we're actually building a computer that has real neurons in real time that's also psychically connected to us, that are organic creatures.
You are connected as an organic computer. I mean, this is one of the most quote-unquote conspiratory theories that's been around for many years, decades. But the reality is we're now facing the reality of that. It is no longer a conspiracy, and quite frankly, it terrifies me.
Even now, the sentient world simulation is watching you learn about it, and inside its intelligent mind is creating a second you, running different scenarios against you to see how you react.
if or not you agree, that was some pretty disturbing stuff we just saw and heard. And if that wasn't disturbing enough, we're going to get a little bit more disturbing now with the second and final little video that we're going to watch. As you can see, it's about 14 minutes long, so your patience is requested again, but this is very important and informative stuff, so really, you know, pay attention. It is within your best interest, and as I said, it's up to you whether you decide or not if this is a real true threat, if it is a real thing, or if it is something to dismiss. And all we are really doing is trying to share some information with you all. And hopefully, you know, this information that we share will give you the ability to cast some thoughts and opinions of your own. And as I said, if we are being manipulated and controlled by artificial intelligence, and our thoughts and behavioral patterns are indeed the result of that control from artificial intelligence, then arming ourselves with a little bit of actual information might go a way to combating this over a longer period of time. So anyway, guys, get yourself comfortable and let's go right ahead and dive into this one, because this kind of suggests and outlines how they are using the sentient world simulation and electromagnetic frequencies in order to perpetuate this scam pandemic known as COVID-19.
In the September of 2001, the world changed. And I'm not talking about 9/11. I'm talking about 1 week later, when the internet world changed. This was the introduction of Code Red. Code Red wasn't an email virus. It wasn't a zombie, a Trojan. It was all of the above. It was the world's first complex blended threat, and it went around the world in 3 days. By September 21st, it had infected 2.2 million systems worldwide. Governments took notice because they realized they could take this technology and bring it up to a whole other level.
Hacking DNA? Well, they've been doing that for a while. I mean, you know, putting all sorts of information in DNA, storing and encoding books and other long digital files in DNA. But this is using CRISPR-Cas9 to essentially have your DNA spy on you.
It's gotten to a point of a confluence, a merging between man and machine in a digital cyber world where we can never tell them apart. A digital cyber world where the battles are not being fought with bombs and bullets, but with bits and bytes. This is the age of the cyber spy.
This idea of using CRISPR-Cas9 to insert spy genes into your DNA opens up a really interesting world, especially when you look at the possibility of quantum computing.
So let me share that with you now. I'm going to take you down a digital wormhole, a wormhole, by the way, that we plan to send those attackers. There is another war going on beneath the surface.
The new novel coronavirus is a man-made new form of neurowarfare unleashed on the world under a secret United Nations protocol using a viral delivery system to strong-arm the human race, to redesign and restructure the biological bloodstock and DNA gene pool of the entire human race, to forcefully integrate the human race into a new cybernetic evolution of mankind by redesigning and re-engineering the DNA patterns.
The modern type of bioweapons are frequency controlled. Yeah. So they don't even start doing any harm before they're not activated. Yeah. We saw that, for example, and this is an interesting story, when we look into what's happening in the US. Sentient world simulation run by the intelligence community that is basically picking up data from transhumanistic technologies of all the people, creating a real world simulation.
You see, if you're going to defend yourself against technology that replaces people, then the next step of convergence is to create technology that behaves like people, that in a digital world you cannot tell one from the other. We're capable of creating massive networks so real that you cannot tell them apart.
And then the plan is to reverse the signal from the antenna systems they run, which is also always the phase array antenna technology. And they want to reverse the signals and basically to turn U.S. citizens into biorobots.
And once the person is infected with this virus, the coronavirus, these nanoparticulates migrate through the bloodstream to the brain and adhere to the neurotransmitters of the victim's brain and begin to speak to and decode those neurotransmitters through a process called directed energy flashing.
So this is all done by this DNA. There's a new field of research. They realized that the base pairs can be mounted into a chain in a way that functions like a computer, like a logical element. And this is, if you visualize this, it's like the old method with telephones, when you were dialing with sound. Every base pair has a resonance frequency. It's somewhere in the terahertz range. And if you hit the right frequency, it is opening like a light conducting unit. And if you have a chain of these base pairs that react on different frequencies, you need a sequence of sounds to open all the fragments to make the entire thing conductive. So it goes like do-do-do-do-do, and then the next part of the genetic thing is activated to either produce light or to produce poison. And this is something beautiful out of their view of the world, because if you bring this RNA or DNA into the human body, you can kind of take a radio signal and activate it from outside to produce any substance you want or to produce any light you want. Light is emotion, light is thought, light is everything. Everything we sense as experience. There was a community of like 200 scientists who didn't want to support this development anymore, and they united to a group and started to speak out as a group to the public. Their families were assassinated with radio frequencies, and the symptoms of them dying were very, very, very similar to coronavirus death. Like having flu-like symptoms, then going to hospital with lung infection, and then dying from organ failure. So apparently we do have something that is related to electromagnetic warfare that shows the same symptoms, like the flu, that is easily mistaken. And then we can basically look to see in the United States, this is all a hidden agenda. Nobody is officially talking about the things, even if you have the terms that describe the technological system. So this is an agenda that is rolled out in the hidden in the United States. In China, it is actually the opposite. Yeah. In China, this idea of having a central AI controlling everything is rolled out in public, being sold as an AI goddess, that is kind of the loving mother of the state, taking care of all people, making sure that everything is prospering in harmony. This is how they sell these developments. And still, every this is also absolutely public. Every citizen is getting a kind of a ranking system of collecting points of being nice or naughty.
Yeah, the social credit system.
Yeah, social credit system. So and people support that because Chinese people are afraid of each other, so they want each other to be cancelled out in case of getting naughty. Mm-hmm. This is their mentality, and they fully accept that. So this is on a completely different level. And what we do know is that Wuhan area is leading in 5G rollout worldwide. So at a certain point, you need, if you have this agenda that says, let's turn everybody into AI-controlled biorobot to make sure nobody dances out of the line, At a certain point, this needs to be tested to gather data to make it function better. And at a certain point, it comes to the moment where all the people who do not comply, who do not function as AI robots, need to be removed. And I know the data from the United States, the guys who still continued after all the families were murdered from these group that started to talk openly about what HARP facilities were built for. He said that actually 70% of US population see mind control as something external. So this is biorobots.
But you're saying 70% are already there. I mean, just 30% or maybe a bit less.
Yes.
I don't know, but okay.
In Europe, I don't have numbers. I just have some experience of my environment. You know, you get these funny moments. I had them twice till now. When I was in company, and suddenly there's like a wave going through the setup. Everything goes dark for a second or a nanosecond, and then I revive, and I wake up in a different conversation.
What, a split of a second later?
A split of a second later, something completely else is happening around me. And it's like the conversation we had was cut, stopped, ended in nowhere, and the conversation that continued sounded like it has been running for half an hour already.
The entities that do the wiping are literally akin to daemon processing systems for the computer. It's like a background processing system, a program, for a computer system, to the point where as soon as a person begins to absorb information through their data processing center, their mind, that is not relative to that time or the plane, basically a specific set within a rule set or a parameter for the local environment or the control system, these entities come and try and pull that information out. They literally try and delete the information from the timeline. And that's personally or collectively. And that part's real weird, but that's what that is. And apparently their role is a good role. This is how it was explained to me. And I've seen these meetings too.
And I had this effect twice. And one time I was with friends on Fuerteventura, and they were in the same spirit as I was. And a day after, the guy who I was visiting told me, actually, you know, I think without an AI controlling everything on the planet, we are lost. Humanity is not going to make it. We need an AI to control us. So he basically, completely was switched in his... and there were actually 2 people on the table from 6 who perceived that moment of going dark and reviving and having the talk shifted. 2 of us could feel it.
Wow.
And all the other ones said, no, there was nothing.
And did you speak about it at that time?
Yeah. We communicated about that.
Wow. What was his... What did you think of it? I mean, what do you think of it now? What was it?
For me, it feels like the sentient world simulation taking over things to push it into a defined direction when what it sees, it doesn't like it. So apparently they have like monitoring things that see when developments take a direction that are not wanted, and then they test different scenarios, and then they decide for one scenario, and they just jump in.
We have every shadow information for watch because we can't look into the real computers, but we can look into ours, and we can see what processes they use, and then decide to quarantine the actual system using software-defined networking. And then they can't talk out to the real world, and instead we tunnel them down to a shadow HR department that isn't real, but just behaves like real. Now, I got to be honest here, we couldn't show you everything. We had to actually change a lot of names, scribble out some IP addresses, and we're not allowed to bring you as deep into the network as we want. It's a good thing, because if we showed you everything, we'd have to shoot you. So we've come to the end of our journey of convergence of man and machine, of confluence between two separate streams that come together to make things more powerful. We've seen technology go from completely separate from man to leveraged to replacing man to behaving like man. What comes after behaving, I wonder? Well, if history is any guide, the question shouldn't be if this technology will one day profoundly impact our lives. The question should be, will we ever even realize it? Thank you very much.
Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.